Corrections are encouraged.
Can we get a cup of coffee in here, please?
Damn good coffee and hot.
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee and get ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with the Dog. You make me laugh.
Oh, do I? What, me? Oh, you looking at me? Stop looking at me. What's going on here? Oh, big. Oh, yeah, we'll get more of that coffee. That's good. We got the Whiskey Barrel Blend back in stock, and we are getting ready to wake up. Good morning, folks. It's Friday, which is one of the top 3 days of the week, I think. Probably one of the top 2, if I really think about it. I got to really think about it, though. Let me think. It's tied for the top 2, I guess, with Sunday. Anyway, it's Friday, November 17th, 2023. Hope it's a beautiful day wherever you are. It's going to get up into the 60s today, not the high 60s, low 60s, but hey, in late November, well, mid towards late November, everything's kind of on the cusp here lately. We'll take it. Anyway, so people are saying they wish I really would run for office. They're seeing my reels and they're saying they wish I was really running. I am really running, or at least for now, really running. I want to talk about that. But it's strange that they think it's all a joke. I know almost everything I say is a joke, and it's hard to take me seriously. But it's pretty clear. Those aren't. I think it should be pretty clear that those aren't fake interview clips. That's a real interview. I actually have. I'm on the ballot as of now. The thing is, I might not be on the ballot as of tomorrow or as soon as I make up my mind about this. Yesterday, just as we were signing off, I noticed that George Santos had decided to drop out of the election because of the ethics committee report that came back on him, which was pretty damning. And I saw that. And I said, as I was signing off, and some people didn't hear me, my campaign might be fucked. And let's be honest, with Santos in the race, I have a fighter's chance and a puncher's chance, and it's really a slim puncher's chance, but it's a puncher's chance. With Santos out of the race, I have to run against a real politician, somebody who doesn't have 21 indictments and a history of being a pathological liar and a real resume to go on. I don't stand a chance. Why would you vote for me over a polished, real politician? The only reason I can think of is that you're sick of real polished politicians. But to be honest, we need some competent people. And if you have a choice between me and a competent person, who are you gonna pick? I'm just saying. So I don't know if I'm gonna run or not. It kind of threw a monkey wrench into the works here. As of now, I'm still on the ballot. I'm still planning on running. I'm a little confused at this moment. Maybe you want to help. Oh, that's fine. You want to give me some advice? Should I stay in the race? Should I stay or should I go? Is it worth it just to make a bunch of noise and get some attention by running? Or should I leave it to the professionals to handle? We're going to talk about politics today. Our first guest is a historian and political analyst. And if you remember last week, a week ago today, I believe it was, we had a lady on who had a patch that can cure anything. This guy thinks he has politics figured out. It's equally as I'm equally as skeptical about the whole thing. If you think you got politics figured out, you might as well tell me you have a miracle cure, a patch that you can put on your arm that can cure anything. I'm wheezing a little bit here this morning with the COPD. I didn't smoke. Well, I did smoke. I'm lying. I did smoke. I forgot I smoked on the way home last night. Anyway, Frank Cum got back in touch with me last night. I was really thinking I was going to get the cold shoulder from Mr. Cum, but it appears he's open to being on the program now. I'm not sure if he understands because he's on the West Coast. I'm not sure he understands just how early this is, but he said, "Yeah, we'll do it sometime before Christmas." So I got to get back to him with some dates and figure something out. But again, he said yes at this point. I'm not sure he understands that what he. It's going to be 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning for him. And I know he's an early riser generally, but people, comedians or funny people, creative people, uh, aren't their funniest or most creative. Maybe I'm being overgeneralizing here. At 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I know I'm not. I'm extremely tired this morning because I was out with Surfer Phil last night. It was old gay homo night. Uh, gay homo, old homo date night at Pure Prairie League, Firefall, and Richie Furay band. Um, Listen, yeah, I opened for two of those bands back in the day. I opened for Firefall and Pure Prairie League, but I'm looking at lines of people going to see that, and I'm like, people actually want to pay to go see Pure Prairie League, and then actually they had three hits. I forgot about one of them. Two-Lane Highway was one of their hits, but uh, three hits 70 years, 50 years ago in the 70s, and I think their latest hit was like 1981. Let Me Love You Tonight. And then Firefall, I forgot how many hits Firefall had. They had 5 or 6 hits. Well, hey, good for them. 5 or 6 hits is a lot of hits. Not as many hits as Vanessa Hollingshead took when she was 8 years old, but it's a lot of hits. Listen, I think I've talked about this recently. I would have settled for one hit. One hit is enough to really set you up financially. Anyway, they had 5 or 6 hits, and they were very good. All of them. Richie Furay, if you don't know, was from Buffalo Springfield, but he was doing not Buffalo Springfield music. He was doing his music, which I don't know, and a lot of people probably don't know. It's he calls himself the grandfather of Southern rock, and it seemed like Christian revival, gospel, white Southern gospel. That's what it is. That's what it sounds like, anyway. And he just did acoustic with his daughter and a guy who was pretty much playing the same acoustic parts as him. So it was 2 acoustic guitars and 3 vocals. So not exactly something I would be rushing out to a theater on Thursday night. But for me, going out on a Thursday night is an unusual thing anyway. But I was surprised at the number of people that were there. And I was thinking, Phil told me to be there at 7:15. I know I'm going on about this. I'm sorry. I'm just, it's what I got to get this off my chest, or I'll just walk around talking to myself about it all day. Phil told me to be there at 7:15. I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to get there. So I got there, but I got there around 7 o'clock, and I'm standing out in front of the theater, and I'm noticing the line of people, and I'm noticing that they are the same people I would be playing for if I were playing at a nursing home gig, except they're not in a nursing home. They're not in wheelchairs, but they're old. And listen, I'm old, but they look old to me. If you look old to me, you're old. I'm sorry. I'm old. And if you look old, if my perception of you is you look old, gee, you look old. Hey, buddy, you look old. You look pretty old. You're old. So that's the crowd that goes to see Pure Prairie. But a lot of people, Patchogue Theater for the Performing Arts, I'm not sure how many seats it holds. I would guess 600 or 700. And I would also guess that there were about maybe 20, 25 empty seats in the whole place. On a Thursday night to see bands that were popular 50 years ago. Two bands and one that most people never heard of. But I was assuming that Surfer Phil won the tickets on like gayboysurfer.com or something. Because it felt, I mean, we're two old dudes going to see yacht rock. Is it yacht rock? Southern yacht rock. Southern yacht rock. We got something new. On a Thursday night together. It wasn't like we were holding hands, don't get me wrong. But I'm sure people were looking at us like, oh, look at the cute old gay couple. For some reason, that still bothers me, that perception. And I know it bothers Phil because I posted a short reel about it, and he doesn't approve of the message. It's just a little weird. I'm sorry. Now I know I'm going to get some kickback and flack about that. I have no problem with gay people. I love gay people. I love them all. Let me give you a big hug. I just the perception that I'm out on gay date night, old gay date night, is a little troubling to me. Anyway, it was a good show. They were really good. Impressed with. I'm very impressed with the musicianship. Now, I have to say, when old men, the guys in the bands are older than me by 10 years at least. They're 75 to 80. And they have the lead guitar player, lead singer for Firefall, has a full, thick head of hair, long hair, but very thick, like he's got a mop on his head. And he looks like, when you get older, your bones start to condense and you start to get small. He looked like a little old lady, and he moved like a little old lady. It was like, that's not rock starish, dude. I know it's not the thing you're trying to project, but it pretty much, it was a mirror into my own life. Like when I'm out gigging, are people looking at me? And I think the answer is yes. People looking at me saying, boy, you should have given it up years ago. I mean, you could still play, but you look kind of goofy, like an old person trying to rock out. And you're not going to rock out because you're old. That's what I felt like. So it's kind of mixed feelings driving home thinking, uh, fuck me. Fuck me. I should give up. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want people looking at me saying, well, first of all, I don't have the mop. So I don't look like a little old lady. But the guy even had he was almost dressed like a little old lady. He had these I don't know, grandma kitchen shoes on. And he was like walking like a little old lady. And it's just like, I don't want to be a little old lady. The thing is, when you get old, transgenderism is almost natural. Old ladies turn into old men with mustaches and stuff. Old men turn into old ladies. Is there a lesson in there? I don't know. First, let's I gotta stop rambling. Let's just say hello to GD. Now, Willie won't be with us this morning. Good morning, GD.
Good morning. Mind Dog Coffee. I don't always drink coffee, but when I do, I get the shits. Mind Dog Coffee.
I think some of those people last night could use a little cup of Mind Dog coffee. But you know what? They were well received. And I don't know. It's just weird being in an audience full of old people.
I have a question for you. We actually have several questions for you about last night. And of course, I do. The first question is, you mentioned that there are two guitar players both playing the same part. Would they have been, do you think that one guitarist would have been beneficial had they had like a 12-string guitar to fill it out? Because I'm wondering if they're just trying to fill it out because it was acoustic.
One of the guys played like two leads on acoustics, and that wouldn't have worked on a 12-string. So it was, it was apparent that that's what his purpose was, to be the lead guitar player. But for almost the entire 10-song set or whatever they played, he just played the exact same parts that the that Richie Furay was playing, which and it was just strumming like an A chord, D chord, E chords type of stuff. Like
Yeah, that's what I'm
not
saying. So if Ricky Bobese was playing the 12 string, the one who just played rhythm, not the lead guitar player,
maybe
because it seems to me like they were just trying to make it a fuller sound.
yes.
But I wasn't there.
The
And
sound, by the way, the sound was amazing. The sound system there and the sound people, sound operator there, very impressive, very good stuff. But yeah, I get your point. Yeah, I think they were trying to just to fill it up a little bit, but that the other guy's role was really to play a lead twice or something, and he stepped on a pedal and all. I hate when an acoustic guitar starts to sound like electric. When he took
right,
his lead, he stepped on this like gain pedal or something, and it
yeah.
started to sound like he was elected, and I don't like that.
Now, do you because you have like what 900 guitars,
I
or
d-
how many of them are 12 string?
I don't have a 12 string currently. I had a 12 string. I think I pawned it or something. I got rid of it. I just maybe sold it on Marketplace, something like that. Um, 12 strings is just too much of a pain in the ass
They
for
are.
me.
They are. They are. Yeah, and if you don't use them all the time or detune,
Yeah,
mine, I forgot to detune, and I didn't use it for like 3 months. And when I went to get it back, the action on the neck was like a half inch near the bottom. It's
right.
just I was like, oh my, because nobody told me. I was not given the instruction manual for the 12-string guitar that if you don't use it for 3 months, you should detune it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the whole 12 strings are a pain in the ass, and then stringing them, you got
Yeah.
$26 for a set of strings now. If
Yeah.
you, I'm sounding like a cheap old person.
Well,
I'm a
you are a
cheap
cheap
old
old
gay guy.
person. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, but you're a cheap old person. But I
I
shouldn't say
am.
old because we're almost the same age.
Yeah, happy birthday, by the way. A preemptive happy birthday.
Yeah, preemptive strike. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now the other question I was going to ask you is like, I'm. Will we be doing a critical joke theory today?
we'll be doing. Oh yeah, if you got one ready, yes.
Yeah, I got one ready. I was like you. I was out performing last night. I didn't get home till like around midnight, and that's when I started working on the critical joke theory.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
and I
yeah,
finished it. I finished it at 8:35. I was like, okay. I said,
yeah.
I'm ready to go.
I did some reels and contacted some guests back at. I was doing booking until about 2:30 this morning, so we're both a little shot. Anyway, our first guest is here. I want to play a really quick commercial, and then we'll get to him. We'll talk about what's wrong with politics and how we sort it out. Now I'm really interested in hearing what he has to say because if anybody can make any sense out of the political landscape right now, I would be shocked. But so let's just let's play creative live. You ready to get creative?
Oh yeah.
Now is the time. Willie won't be here. He's on a bus to South Dakota, but we still have him right here, right now.
It's time to unleash your creative excellence. Dreams won't work if you don't. They never happen overnight, and they rarely follow a straight line. Excellence is a result of the hustle, consistently pushing to do better. And success looks different for everyone. CreativeLive.com charts paths and tailors content for students, but they also encourage independent thinking and exploration. Go outside of your comfort zone. Who knows? You might actually like it. Right now, you can get up to 70% off through this exclusive offer for Coffee with the Dog. CreativeLive.com has site-wide sale for Coffee with the Dog listeners. Save up to 70% off. Go to minddogtv.com and click on the link on the homepage now.
Yeah, Michael Anderson was one of my best friends in high school, and then nobody ever knows what happened to him since then. But he was with me when I bought he actually in junior high school. He was with me when I bought my first expensive guitar, and he was a real supportive guy. Disappeared from my life. Nobody knows what happened to him. You had a Michael Anderson in
Yes,
your
one of the best athletes in my school.
It's like John Smith or Joe Smith or Joe Jackson or something. A very popular name, obviously. But I was kind of hoping when the email came through, or when I first saw this, I don't know where I found Michael, but I was kind of hoping he would be him. Oh yeah, I finally found Mike Anderson, but I don't think he's him by the picture. I doubt he went to high school where I went to high school, but we're going to welcome him in right now. He's a historian, a political analyst focused on contemporary American politics and its problems. He applies, and there's a lot of problems. He applies analysis of political systems from the past to understand the present. He has also produced some original research that contributes to our understanding of politics today, which I don't think we have any understanding of politics today. But let's welcome in Michael Anderson to Coffee with the Dog. Michael, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here. Now, just to clarify, where'd you go to high school? What part of the country?
In Toledo, Ohio.
Okay, so yeah, you're not my Mike. I don't know what happened to my Mike. I missed him, though. He was a great kid. Anyway, I am running for Congress. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I'm sorry, Matt. I didn't get to ask if he was my Mike.
Oh yeah. Are you? You're not his Mike. No, your Mike is black, right?
I didn't get to ask him if he was black.
Oh,
you just assumed that he. Excuse me, Mike. Were you black in high school?
No.
Oh, because he could have Michael Jackson on us.
All right. Yeah. Now, okay, we can move on now.
Yeah.
Can we wait? Can we get 10 minutes into the interview before you start getting silly with the guy? Now, I'm running for Congress. I was planning on running simply because I was running for George Santos' seat. Now, George Santos has dropped out of the race, which makes me doubt that I should even be running. But making sense of politics today, it just seems like a cluster of nonsense. And how do we even begin to make sense of the political landscape we're in right now?
Well, I could go through my process and how I got into writing about politics and all that, but maybe it makes more sense for you to ask me questions or bring up an issue. I mean, you started with, it's a mess.
Yeah.
And maybe I can try to, deconstruct the mess argument, and let's see where it goes, and we'll take it wherever we need to. All right.
Well, yeah, I think, what I mean by a mess is we have definitely gone down a road where, and we've always had this situation where people are more gravitating towards personalities than issues. And most of, and I'm saying this in a broad generalization, most of the general public and the electorate don't even really think about the issues on a deep level. They hear the surface level that they get from, cable TV news, and then they gravitate towards personalities, and whoever is the loudest or speaks to their bias the loudest, they gravitate to without ever really questioning or going deep on the issues. That's what I mean by that.
Let me tell you something even scarier than that. There's a 90% correlation between the amount of money put in a candidate's campaign and his likelihood to win.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I am running a no money campaign. That is exactly the only issue that I care about, is the amount of money we're spending, ridiculous money. But all right, I'll let you finish that. But my belief on this is that money really doesn't make the difference, because they're spending it on television commercials, radio commercials, lawn signs, snail mail, all this kind of stuff that I don't think has ever changed anybody's mind on how they were going to vote.
Right. The only thing I can think is, and I haven't verified this, is that if you put somebody's face in front of people enough times, they remember the face or they remember the name when they go to the ballot box. So it's not like the issues or anything like that matter. And you're absolutely correct that we theoretically live in a democracy, but only 60% of the people vote. And how many of those 60% have studied the issues and the candidates and can make an informed decision, as opposed to being influenced by somebody else?
Right.
Like you're in your union tells you how to vote, or you're in some other organization, they tell you how to vote. That's not the exercise of democracy, because you're just joining a group to vote instead of expressing yourself individually and picking the right candidate.
Do you think the root cause is I'm going to say this I think the root cause is that people the American lifestyle now, we are at a point where if you're in a couple relationship, both parties are out working, not just working, but working more than 40 hours a week. They just don't have the time and energy to invest in learning about the issues, and it's just so easy to sit there and let Sean Hannity or Rachel Maddow or Anderson Cooper or whoever your person of choice is tell you what to think.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, since the 90s, people got busier, and they got busier because they became helicopter parents. They both husband and wife or partner had to work to make a living. There's so many demands on time, but managing kids is a huge thing that is relatively recent because, kids used to walk to school by themselves. And now the kids get chaperoned 24 hours a day, so they never learn to do anything on their own because they're always told what to do, basically.
Is that out of fear, do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because somehow the notion of the man in the candy luring a kid into their car got exaggerated.
Right.
I don't know. We all got more sensitive.
Yeah.
And so you're right. People are forced into a situation where they have to get information in the shortest possible time and in the most summarized form. So, and people are generally lazy. If there's a area that they're not interested in, they're not going to study it,
right,
because they're spending their time doing something else. So learning about the candidates is kind of down the list.
Yeah. And why do you think it is that people dig in, though? Because I have a lot of people who talk to me all the time about politics, and they say they're not cult members. They say they're not, they don't have no emotional attachment to whether it's Biden, Trump, whatever. And basically, I think it's all flowing downhill from there, and that's a whole other thing I'll get into. But if I bring up an issue, like the other day, somebody told me, when Trump was in office, we didn't hear anything about ISIS. We weren't hearing anything about ISIS. I said, I haven't heard a word about ISIS under Biden either. And then he got defensive, like, well, he was just trying to defend it and digging in, and rather than having a real conversation and bringing up stuff that I don't know where he heard, ISIS is a problem right now, one of our top issues. But it just seemed like the instances, let's not really talk about this. Let's get our hair up on our back and like kind of dig in and say, I'm going to defend this side no matter what, than rather have a real serious conversation about it and honest conversation about it.
Well, the root cause of all this is tribalism, which is, I've written 4 books, and the second one's called Tribalism. But our society has devolved into 2 groups, and there's a variety of reasons why that happened, but the group expression is now dominated by the extremes, the extreme right and extreme left, and they get the publicity because that sells newspapers and generates airtime and eyeballs.
Right.
So it's a problem.
Yeah.
And they're both extremely idealistic and impractical. And so, why are people tribal? They're tribal because the tribe becomes safe for some reason. And one of the reasons we became tribal is because the middle dropped out of the political conversation. In the 90s, we still had moderates in Congress who were the negotiators between the right and left and got things done. They're all gone, and only the ideologues are left now.
Right.
So that's a big problem.
Hold up one second, GD.
Sure.
No, I mean, I know GD's getting ready to ask you a question. I just wanted to say that just observe that how we define moderate has changed drastically. In 2012, I'm pretty sure most people thought and I wasn't one of these people, that Mitt Romney was an extremist, but now, now he's considered almost left. He's a leftist. He was an extreme rightist, in at least portrayed that way in the 2012 election cycle, and now he's the general perception of him is that he's a lefty, or not even a conservative at all, which is, so I think we've changed how we even define moderate.
But it goes the other way too. Like you could call Bill Clinton almost a Republican now,
Right? Yeah.
because the Democratic Party has gone so far left because of Biden's devil's pact with the progressives that everybody else, everybody left of center is now right of center.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, GD, you got a question? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh yeah, well, several, but let's take them one at a time. I'm listening to the way you use words and the way you're talking. For example, you basically said two groups. There's tribalism and separatism into two groups.
The right and left.
Right, but it's not. There is a middle, and it's not that we've dropped out. We've been driven out or drowned out. I mean, we exist, those of us in the center. And so it's like, even with this conversation, which is supposed to be, which is civil, you've drowned out the middle by just giving credit or recognition to the extremes. And so I think the way that we get to an intelligent conversation is to acknowledge the fact that there is a middle and talk it up, not just not just play up the extremes.
No, I didn't mean to downplay the middle. I was talking about the publicity side of it and who gets the airtime.
Yeah, but you said they dropped out, and they didn't drop out; they were driven out because
I don't know about that. I don't know. I'm not certain I'm disagreeing with you, but I'm not certain I'm agreeing with you. I don't know. I know a lot of people who say they're middle, but if you have a conversation with them and ask them about how they feel about the issues, they're going to line up not in the middle, on one side or the other. I'm in these conversations all day long. I don't know if they've been driven out or dropped out, but I do know that a lot of people who define themselves as middle are really not middle.
Let me take a minute and clarify what I said in a historic context. There have always been right, left, and middle since primitive man, because the tendency to be left or right is genetic. It's a genetic adaptation to the environment that humans experienced in the primitive state.
Yes.
And so and let me just get into that in a little more detail. So when man left Africa, he encountered heterogeneous environments for the first time. Cold weather, variable food supply, different climates, and all that stuff. So he had to learn to adapt to those different environments. And evolution is too slow to make an adaptation like that. So he developed a behavioral adaptation, which breaks down in that time and place to some people in the group wanted to hunt and were always interested in things that were new. And some people in the group wanted to stay home and were interested in managing the tribe in one spot. And that's the left and right, basically. One group wants new things. One group wants the status quo. And of course, there's always been, ever since then, a group in the middle. So if you look at, and I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about the personality and behavior of our society. There are people on the left and people on the right. There's basically like 35 or 40% on the left and same on the right, and then 10 or 15 or 20% in the middle, because the people in the middle are not ideological. I consider myself a moderate because I think of practical solutions to politics, because it's all about moving the country forward. And if you can't pass any laws, we don't make any progress. And the only way to pass laws is to compromise. And of course, there's no compromise now because of tribalism.
Right.
So if you look at the political continuum across all people, there's actually 7 or 8 groups that have been identified, and they all kind of, they respond to polls with different answers to questions indicating different behavior. The left, we all see this all the time. The extreme left is totally focused on equality. They want socialism because that's the only way to achieve equality. And the extreme right is the opposite. Basically, extreme conservatives would say we don't want any changes at all. We don't want traditions thrown away. We want them retained. But then, it's important to say there's a difference between the right politically and the right ideologically, because the right ideologically would be a fascist, whereas the right politically would be a conservative. And they're not the same. You can't lump them together.
I find it hard. It's hard to even find people who understand conservatives. I know a lot of people who call themselves conservatives right now who don't understand what conservatism is all about. And I actually have had that discussion with people who can call themselves conservatives, but on certain issues they are completely progressive, like gay marriage. I can go down a list of abortion, things like that. They are pro-choice, pro-gay marriage, but they call themselves conservatives because they like Donald Trump.
But there's a million flavors of conservative too. I'm in the camp that you just described. I'm probably more conservative on economic issues and the government, and more liberal on social issues.
Right.
I have a lot of opinions that the right wouldn't like, but the average run-of-the-mill conservative is going to be someone who prefers the status quo and likes traditions. Is probably religious, respects authority, is loyal, that kind of thing. And of course, there are many the Republicans fight within themselves because there's so many flavors of republicanism.
Right.
You've got libertarianism as at one extreme, and then you've got moderate republicanism on another. And
is anarchism in there in your view?
Well, the world is really divided politically between collectivists and individualists. Basically, collectivists are anyone who wants a group-driven political system like socialism, and anarchism would be a collectivist philosophy, and so would fascism, Nazism, because that's a collectivist, meaning it's authoritarian and there's one single entity that controls the society.
Right.
Whereas individuals believe that in the individual desire to make something himself and have enough liberty to determine his life, how he wants to live his life.
Understood. GD, I didn't mean to kneecap you. You were making a point about the middle, but I just wanted to interject that because you would say you seem to be going down this idea that it's been driven out. I'm not sure I agree with you. I'm not sure I disagree with you, but I think a lot of it is tied to economics, and we tie the middle of the political spectrum to the middle class, and I'm not sure that I'm sure it has a cause and effect there. I'm not sure where it lies, but I didn't mean to kneecap you in your point. If you want to continue on asking
now in I'm trying to think here. One of the things you'd written was that I guess this is referring to politics or governance, and that it sounds like you're of the opinion that there was no right or wrong. I don't know if that was like ethicals, like as far as ethics, and in politics or in government that there's no right or wrong. It's just that I didn't know if you want to expound upon that, because in principle, I disagree that there is no right or wrong when it comes to politics or governance.
That's a great topic to discuss. There are 3 types of morality. And I never knew this as a kid because I thought morality is what the church told you. So if you read the Bible, that's morality, and you should live like your religion says. Actually, there's 3 kinds. There's individual morality, what the morality each of us have inside us. And we kind of talked about that because it could be, You could be on the left on abortion and be on the right on economics or something. So that's inside you. Then there is public morality, which is the morality of our society, basically. Very simple. So, and the morality of our society is whatever the society decides it should be. It's not up to individuals, it's up to the consensus in the society. Great example. In 1960, if you were homosexual, you got abused, attacked, whatever. Now, people view the majority of the United States views homosexual behavior as normal behavior. Attitudes changed and the public morality changed. The same, I mean, you got all these examples like slavery. Slavery was accepted. Now it's no longer accepted. It's looked at as evil because the public morality, the consensus of Americans said, we're changing to what is more right than what was right before. Okay, and the third tech morality is political morality, which is what are your politics? Because you have your individual morality, and how does that reflect in your politics? If you love equality, then you're probably on the left. And if you believe that the government needs to create equality, you're a socialist. You're not on no conservative would think that. So is this clear? I mean,
Well,
let me.
For example, let's take slavery for example.
Okay.
I don't think that our society has decided that slavery was bad. I think they just decided calling it slavery was bad because if you look at the way corporations work or think, the whole thing with slavery was just getting the cheapest possible labor. That was it. The cheapest possible labor, and forget about their humanity. Well, that's what corporations do all the time. They look for the cheapest possible labor, and if it happens to be immigrant labor, and pay them as little as possible, treat them as inhumanely as possible. As long as we're making our profits, that's fine. That is still the essence of slavery. And but so we haven't gotten rid or accepted the fact that slavery is bad. We just accepted the fact that calling it slavery was bad.
Right. I agree 100%. I was just referring to the African-American slavery that existed before the Civil War. Because
even that still hasn't. Even still, then they just don't want to call it that anymore. They just don't. Which is, if you look at some of the way they're rewriting some of the history books, they're trying to not just erase the way slavery is today, but the way slavery was back then by calling it the Atlantic Triangle Trade. So, and these are conservatives who are trying to change the past. So.
Well, I think that the idea of this different kind of moralities, different degrees of moralities, different modalities of morality, I think you're right in terms of the majority of the reason for slavery is economic, but that not only economic, it's control and ownership of the workforce.
Yes.
So that's not necessarily economical. That's it's like owning and controlling every aspect of their lives. And I think that up to that part, I think many people, even corporations and people like that, really understood and accepted that owning people and that kind of complete control of their lives is bad on a moralistic version. But I do agree that for the economic purpose, yes, nothing has changed. They still want labor. If they can get it for free, they would get it for free.
And I maintain that the treating them like human beings is not. The corporations don't do that either. But they just can't call it that.
I think they do.
Because, for example, they get somebody. Let's say get an employee who's middle management and says, okay, now your salary, and they'll say the corporations, well, I shouldn't say corporations because they're not, corporations aren't people. Okay. So the people who make the decisions are still making decisions like, okay, we'll give them cell phones and we will intrude upon their life, so that they are beholden to us. We will try to destroy unions so that they don't have the safety in numbers. So
I think
and
you're
that's
painting everything with one broad brush, because I think there are different corporations and I agree that they're not people, but the head of a corporation, and we'll conclude Michael back in on this conversation, but I think heads of corporations can have different perspectives on that and can lead to initiatives where we want HR to really include the quality of life for our employees. There are corporations that do that. Now, I'm not saying that's the majority, but there are progressive
there are.
management in
There
corporations.
are. I'm not saying that they aren't. I'm just saying that as a general,
Yeah.
in general, and most corporations did not come to these conclusions about humanity on their own. they were pushed into it, and so that's what I'm saying. I do believe that there's a right and wrong in ethics, when it is, and even in governance, because it's not just the rules that we have or the laws that we have, but who's enforcing them and how.
Right. What can you comment on that, Michael?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that he made the comment about people and corporations, because what gave corporations power was they were named equivalent to people in a judicial ruling. I think it was 1883. Because before that, corporations had much less power than they did before. They were basically joint ownership by investors, and they didn't have as much power. But when this judicial interpretation was made, I think it was by the Supreme Court, that allowed corporations to be sued and to sue other people. So it turned them into people, so that they could use the behavior of people to further themselves. But I mean, regarding your point about when I've worked at corporations where I had to carry a pager, they gave me a cell phone or everything. To me, that's a requirement of working there. That's not making me a slave. I mean, I have a choice whether to go to work there. And I understand the other side. They don't want their corporate secrets stolen. For example, they don't want people connecting to their corporate network using a cell phone that's not secure, for example, because it could be hacked or whatever. And I'm not excusing corporations. I mean, there's a basic disconnect in our society between profit and care for people. There's no doubt about it, because corporations exist to make money. Right. And so by definition, in support of what you're saying, they do things that further profit and that may be a detriment to their employees.
Right. I'm really curious about this idea of right and wrong. Now, GD put out the idea that there is a definitive right and wrong, and I'm assuming that applies across the board in every instance. But I also think that people who are certain they know right from wrong are, and I'm talking about religiously now, are a cause of most of the wars that we see in the world. And this conviction that right and wrong exist, but only I know what they are, and you have it wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people have argued the Catholic Church killed more people than any war,
right?
Or all the wars.
Yeah.
All the inquisitions and attacks on people who were not Catholic. And
so, does right and wrong exist objectively?
No, that's the point. It doesn't exist objectively, because for 2,000 years, philosophers have been trying to figure out what is the correct morality. And no one has been able to determine that. And in fact, it's relative. That's where
that's true. And that's what I'm comparing it to. Because it's relative, like we have a constitution.
Yeah.
And so, like, if our constitution says all people are to be treated equally.
Right.
Okay. Well, if that's what it said, but that's not how it was practiced for many, many, many years, and even today, where a person who may be trans, is not they may say a person who may be trans wants to go into a store, and the person who has that store goes, well, I do not want to serve trans people.
Right.
Okay. Now the law says, well, you have to take my money. You're on a public street. your street is paid for with public taxes, and it just so happens that some of those taxpayers are trans. So yes, you will serve these people, and then the person will go like, well, I don't want to. I'm going to sue them, or sue the, I'm going to go take this to court. And somewhere out there is a lawyer who's going to say, you know something? I know the Constitution says that everybody should be treated the same, but I'm going to take the case that says trans people should not be treated the same. And so to me, there's a right and wrong in that regard, because the Constitution says everybody should be treated the same. And the right thing to do is to treat everyone the same. The wrong thing to do is to attack people and separate them and say, well, you don't deserve to be protected or given equal rights, the right to marry, the right to adopt, or the right to visit your loved ones in a hospital.
Well, here's my, and I'll give it back to Michael in just 1 second. But here's where I agree with you and disagree with you. I agree on what our perception. I think you and I have the same perception of what is right and wrong. But I talked to a guy the other night who doesn't believe that trans people should be treated equally. He believes they are psychologically suffering. They are diseased and mentally diseased, and should not be given the same rights as other people. And he's absolutely convinced that his moralistic view on that is right, and which is why I canceled him. I said, we can't have a conversation on this because I didn't think it would be a civil conversation. I thought it would be us yelling at each other and neither one listening to each other's points. But so yes, I think because we agree on what is right and wrong, we can say that. But there are people who have a different perspective on what's right and wrong.
But now, I don't want to just, I'm not talking about beliefs now, because people are free to believe whatever they want. And I'm not one to say your belief is right or your belief is wrong. I'm referring to how it's practiced, and once it leaves your brain and no longer becomes a belief, but becomes a social act, or then there's a right and a wrong,
based on your belief of what right and wrong is.
Just based on what the Constitution says is what I'm saying, and that's
supposed
to be the law of the land.
They're words, and people will interpret words differently. That's what I'm saying. People will take it. So when you say people was defined different. A woman was not, and a black man was not considered in their definition of it. So it is about your belief. It is about, at the end of the day, how you define right and wrong comes down to your beliefs.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is like the spirit of the law does not distinguish.
It does. It does, because the people who wrote the law didn't count. When you say people, they didn't define.
Oh, believe me, I understand, but I'm just saying.
So they were keeping with the spirit of the law as they wrote it.
Okay, you got me.
I'm just saying that there is no, your beliefs do define what is right and wrong, and this is where, and Michael, and maybe you can help me out. This is where I think there is an impasse. If we can't agree globally on what's right and wrong, where right and wrong are, how do we bridge that gap? Because that's what politics is supposed to be, finding a way to bridge this gap between how we perceive moralistic issues, right or wrong.
Right. Well, let's take abortion for an example. I mean, there is moral relativity on abortion, no doubt about it. And there is no right answer to me, because some people believe you shouldn't kill a child. Other people believe the woman's body is paramount, and if a woman feels the need to abort that child, they should be able to do it. And it's about a 50-50 split between the public. So there is, given that state of difference between what people believe, how can you say there's only one, like abortion is right or wrong? All you can say is abortion is relative, right?
I think I agree. I'll tell you where I am on this. I am in both places. I think the child should be preserved, but I do think at the end of the day it should be the woman's choice. I have a unique perspective on this, and I think this is where we stop listening, because experts, and the word experts get thrown around a lot, but people who have had experience in the situation. I used to do child autopsies fetal autopsies, those kind of things, and have a different perspective of when life begins, having seen enough 6-week-old fetuses to think, well, that's a little baby human there. So that affects my perception that all life is sacred and that's a human being. But also at the end of the day, I feel like it is a woman's choice. So I'm like in the middle there. I really totally get both sides of that. And I think you're right. There is no right and wrong. It always comes down to your perspective on what is right and wrong and what you believe is right and wrong. And so the question becomes, how do we bridge that gap and find room for compromise? Do you think that's possible in today's world?
We got to fix the tribalism. And until we fix it, and unfortunately, Trump versus Biden, if that's the slate and one of those two wins, we got 4 more years of tribalism.
Right.
Because we're not going to fix it until the slate gets clean and some of these people are gone from the political stage. But let me make a comment about the Constitution. Unfortunately, the Constitution didn't address most of the issues that we face today. That's why they become arguments where there's one side and another. And remember that the American population was pretty monolithic in the colonial times. Basically, the wealthy people didn't want to give out too many rights, but they knew they had to rely on the public because they had to be united in order to take on the British. And so the trade was, well, you unite with us and we'll build a country that has a constitution, will give you freedom. So that's it. But when the Constitution was accepted and the government started, you had to own property to vote. So not only were African Americans excluded, women were excluded, but if you didn't own land, you were excluded. Because the theory, and this is something Rome did, Rome had that law, and the theory was if you own property, you're going to care more about how your government runs.
Right.
Basic theory. So, but that wasn't really a democracy. It was more of a republic like Rome. And so then we became more democratic over time. Suffrage got expanded. Finally, in 1920, women were admitted. They dropped the requirement to own land. Senators became elected by the people. And so we got more democratic.
But one of the things we didn't do, which I think was by design, well, at least my understanding is that the intention was that the Constitution would be re-examined every generation or so by the people so that they could address their needs as a country, to have a constitution that grew and not to have it in stone so that we are now having to defend the thinking and the thoughts of a person from the 1700s.
Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right. George Washington said, I hope this document lasts 25 years.
Yeah.
Because, they didn't know what was going to happen. They were solving a set of problems associated with getting rid of the British. You had to create a government and you had to write a constitution and Bill of Rights to do it. And I agree with you that our society, our government is stuck because it's bloated and non-functional, and that's a problem.
But isn't that something? The problem is just the way the human brain works, the way the human brain is designed. The brain is designed to just keep us alive and take shortcuts.
Right. But we're also designed. The government was not the government, but us. We're designed to love bureaucracy. Basically, when people get into positions where they have power, they stay, and the power stays. And it's hard to change that. So for anybody who in 1850 who wanted to go back and, let's rewrite the Constitution, nobody was going to do it because there was too much power and support for the way it was.
Right.
So we don't tend to tear things down to fix them when we should.
Right. Yeah.
Ben Franklin said we ought to have a revolution every 100 years just to start over. It was very smart. That's really true.
It's smart, but it's also scary. I mean,
Yeah,
because
scary. Yeah,
revolution always involves bloodshed and violence. You can't have. I don't believe you can have. And
yeah,
maybe this is coming back to beliefs again. I don't believe you can have a revolution peacefully.
yeah.
Maybe you can. I don't know. But I just want to, because we are getting short on time here. You have 4 books out now. 2 of them, Progressive Gene and Conservative Gene, and Tribalism. Because you mentioned tribalism as we need to get past that. The blueprint for getting past tribalism, I think, is hindered by this. And I have not read the books, but I'm just assuming from the conversation that we had that both these books, the Progressive Gene and Conservative Gene, basically rely on this contention that we are who we are politically from a birth, from a genetic standpoint. And if
Yeah.
that is the case, is there a blueprint for getting past tribalism?
Well, when you think about it, and you could come up with this answer as easy as me. The main way to do it is if people have to start talking. There needs to be people in the middle. They have to be moderates, and the public has to value moderates taking the place of arbiters and starting to pull the two parties together. That's the obvious answer. One bad potential answer is anything that pulls the country together. Like if there was a 9/11 or something like that, or a war, everybody has to understand that there's something more important than living in your tribe.
Right.
And it would have to be a national threat to our country or something like that. That would all work. We don't want that.
But we had COVID, and that became politicized. Which COVID should have united us, but instead it became like it became a
completely divisive.
You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, since 2005 or wherever year you want to pick, 2000, everything in our society has become politicized.
Yeah.
I mean, universities used to write research papers, and then they were people looked at, well, is the conclusion correct or whatever, and then it would gradually work its way into the public space. Now they write controversial papers and they go right in the public space. So they're picked up by everything is politicized. The media is politicized, everything is, and that's a problem.
It seems to me if we took the profit out of the news and if we took the profit out of politics, that would be a good start to getting things set right.
The issue I have with that, and I shouldn't say the issue I have with that. The issue I see with that is that just like everything, words can be changed and perception can be changed. So you say news, take profit out of news, we'll just call it entertainment, and we've seen this.
Which it is anyway.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we can get around now that you can't take profit out of entertainment, or I mean, you could try, but
you can. Oh, you can.
No, I'm not talking about your personal career.
Sorry. I thought you were talking about my comedy, because yes, you can take profit out of entertainment.
So Michael, we do have to wrap it up, but you have 4 books out, and people can find out about it at MikeAndersonBooks.com. To wrap this up, just a short discussion on this. Has freedom of speech become a detriment to us? Because everybody, I'm talking about social media, because the First Amendment gives us all a right to express ourselves, but I seem to have taken it to an extreme that expressing ourselves means just like bullying people and shouting them down.
100%. I'm on your page, because I think that social media has basically ruined the First Amendment. 30 years ago, if you wanted to express yourself in a controversial way, you had to stand on a soapbox in the middle of a park and say it, because you had no access to the media. Now, every crazy can get his 15 minutes of fame. And what's even worse is the crazier it is, the more eyeballs it gets on social media.
Yeah.
So we're just inundated all day, every day by attempts to get our viewing, our eyeballs focused on a particular story. And the more spectacular it is, the more eyeballs it gets.
Yeah.
And craziness is allowed.
Yeah. Are you an optimist?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I find that shocking because of what we saw this week with senators standing up to fight union bosses and the people in the same party sucker punching each other and all that kind of stuff. It seems like this week was definitely an eye opener in where we're headed because we've seen it gradually been getting there, but when we're coming down to threatening each other with violence in the halls that are supposed to do things in a civil way, I think I'm a pessimist. I'm sorry.
And even worse, those damn people took our pandas. No, I'm just kidding.
All right,
Michael, we're gonna get them back. We're getting them back.
Thank you for being here. I think this is an insightful discussion. I do think you're right. Talking about it is important, and it's really important for people who believe themselves to be moderates to kind of try to be a conduit for us coming together if we're going to be optimistic at all in this. So I appreciate you being here, and thanks for bringing this message here.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great day. Bye for now. MichaelAndersonBooks.com. Bye. Mike Anderson book.
Yeah, he hasn't convinced me that he wasn't black in high school.
Well,
I'm not convinced.
What would you say about me? You think what was I in high school?
Oh, I think you were an orange picker.
No, yeah, that's true. That's true, but I was also invisible. I was transparent. I am still a little bit transparent.
You were not trans.
No, not last night. I was kind of borderline. But what he said, this is what I've been trying to do with this campaign I've been running, and hopefully, maybe I've got some indications from people in the chat room that I should continue. And we'll get back. We'll run critical joke theory in a moment. But this is what I've been trying to do. Now, most of the feedback, this is so weird. Most of the feedback has been positive when they just see me talking about issues like dirty money in politics, because I'm not talking about Republicans or Democrats. The minute I talk about an issue from one side, all they hear is that I talked about it from one side, and they assume that, well, you must be a Democrat because I brought up the gun issue, and I said Republicans are not offering anything other than thoughts and prayers. I want to hear anything that they have. Oh, you said that, you must be a Democrat. No, that's not what that means. It means on this issue, Democrats are offering a ban on AR-15s and stuff like that. They have a plan. You don't like that plan. Your alternative to that plan is thoughts and prayers, and that's not enough. I want to hear an actionable plan, whether it's completely pro Second Amendment, that we should arm everybody. That's our solution. If that's your solution, I want to hear that. But thoughts and prayers is not enough. That's all I was saying. But then people came out and they heard me say Republican, so I must be a Democrat now. And so trying to be a moderate and trying to facilitate those conversations, really difficult.
Well, that's part of the reason why I shouldn't say you need. I hate telling people what they need. That's one of the reasons why I would like to see you stay in the race, because if as long as there's a platform and a voice that will help initiate a conversation, I think that's beneficial.
Right. Well, what about his point that without big money, you really can't win? And I tend to agree.
I don't. It's not that you can't. He was saying it's 90%. Like this, like it's a 10% chance you're going without big money. And what that is you'd have to have like a groundswell, like a movement, as opposed to a moment. Because the problem with big money is that they are able to create all of these little moments, and that will drown out the movements. And you need a movement significant enough to drown out the moments that are created artificially.
Well, I would say if you drink Mind Dog coffee, you will get a nice movement every morning. Except for my brother, he's having trouble with his movements.
He's got the wrong blend. See, and there's a right and wrong.
He's
a right
closed
and
his
wrong.
mind. He has closed his mind to this discussion, because every time I say that, you just need to try a darker blend. He can't hear it. We've tribalized our Mind Dog Coffee.
See, he needs to open his mind so he can open his colon. It's closed mind, closed colon.
I think I might use that on the website.
It's a scientific fact. Closed mind, closed colon.
Open your
mind,
mind.
open colon.
All right. Do you want to run critical joke theory now?
If you're ready, we can. Yeah.
It's not whether I'm ready; it's whether you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
So run it. Let's, because while you run it, I'm gonna.
Welcome to Critical Joke Theory with your host GD Fenderson, certified forensic humorist. Now with new joke technology. Hi, I'm GD Fenderson, certified forensic humorist at large, but I'm losing weight. Welcome to Critical Joke Theory, episode 30. Now with new joke technology. Biden met with Xi Jinping, the president of China, not the pandas, on Wednesday. The two discussed, among many things, the problem with fentanyl. They agreed, in principle, to cut down on the shipping of the ingredients that go into making fentanyl to Latin America, where fentanyl is produced. This is like when we locked up all of the Sudafed behind the glass doors in the pharmacies, except that we obviously cannot lock up China in a cabinet. Maybe we can build a wall. No, a great wall. That's it. New York Representative George Santos, seen here posing for a Badgett commercial, has announced that he will not seek re-election at the end of his term. However, Qatar Ravage says, "You're going to have to drag me out of here, biatch." The Supreme Court issues ethics guidelines with no means of enforcement. So it's like Thomas and Alito, seen here storing their bribes for the winter, are playing golf. They get bogey after bogey, but when they turn in their scorecards, they have all eagles. And Roberts says, that's par for the courts. I was going to make a Robert's Rule of Order reference here, but I didn't. It doesn't bother me that most of you don't know what the Robert's Rules of Order are. It does bother me that Roberts does not. Senator Tim Scott has announced that he is suspending his campaign to be the Republican nominee for president. Scott, shown here showing you how big his supporter base is, said that although the Lord put it in his heart to run, the Lord didn't put it in anyone else's heart to support him. Scott will now be free to spend more time with his girlfriend. Well, not free. Whatever he's paying her. Not enough. Senator Manchin, seen here condemning children to live in poverty, says that he may run for president as a centrist. A centrist? What? Manchin is not a centrist. He is a corporatist who will twist every cent out of the wallets of the poor and give it to the rich. He's like Robin Hood, if Robin Hood was Mitch McConnell without a tortoiseshell. Also in presidential politics, Taylor Swift. Senator Markwayne Mullins challenged Teamster boss Sean O'Brien to a fistfight on the Senate floor. Senator Bernie Sanders stopped the potential brawl by telling Mullins the tale of Jimmy Hoffa. Representative Burchett was elbowed by former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy denied the accusation, saying that if I had elbowed him, he'd know it. He'd know it because McCarthy would have to take his head out of Trump's ass to do it. David DePape, the man accused of breaking into the former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home and attacking her husband with a hammer, was found guilty on federal charges by a San Francisco jury on Thursday. His sentencing is set for December 13th, and DePape could face up to 20 Fox News appearances. 47-year-old Gregory Yetman of Middlesex, New Jersey, who was wanted by the FBI for his alleged involvement in the riot at the United States Capitol, has turned himself in after a 3-day manhunt. Yetman, a former National Guardsman, had a $10,000 reward for his capture. Yetman turned himself in, expecting to collect the reward money. Hey, if he was dumb enough to storm the Capitol on behalf of Donald Trump, he might believe the check is in the mail. Hamas has reached a tentative deal to release dozens of hostages pending Israel's approval. Now Hamas is seeking Israel's approval. And finally, Ralph Fenderson, the last surviving sibling of G.D. Fenderson, the world's foremost certified forensic humorist, was found dead in his home on November 15th. He was 67. Ralph, seen here trying to remember what it was like to be the cute Fenderson son, was not all bad, according to G.D. The last of the Fenderson children were orphaned in 2023 when their mother Elaine died. Now, G.D. Fenderson is an orphan and an only child. Oh. When reached for comment, G.D. Fenderson said, "Rest in peace, Ralphie. I win."
Wow.
I'm G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist, now with New Joke Technology. Thank you for watching Critical Joke Theory. Be safe out there.
That was cold.
Don't
as
be the
fuck,
crazies.
Dude. Cold as fuck.
Critical Joke. What do you mean cold? He's cold. I'm fine.
Yeah. No, he will be cold. Well, like probably already is. I'm sorry, man. You know what? I have a different outlook on death than most people, and I'm okay with it. I understand it's part of life, but it's one of those things that we can't talk about without being cold, or perceived as cold by people. I've been surrounded by it my whole life. That listen, I'm scared to death of my own death. I'm scared to death of my own death. But I take it as, you know what, you're probably in a better place, even if there is no afterlife. It still isn't this fucking suffering. And it's not full of werewolves, which we're going to talk about, or wolf wares or something like that. Wolves that wear on us, we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. I just want to point out that Mike Anderson seems to not have much of a funny bone in the man.
Well, no, and part of it is the fact that he's actually he's a little bit more he's actually way more conservative than he's willing to admit to. He's calling himself a moderate, but he's really more conservative. If you watch and you can I understand the precepts he says, the things he says, but it's like you ever watch someone, a conservative or Republican, say, "I want to have a decent, responsible conversation with the Democrat Party." Yeah. Well, that's not, you can't have a responsible conversation with a person or group that you won't acknowledge what their name is. It's the Democratic Party. Yeah. They call them the Democrat Party out of disrespect. So you can't say,
not everybody.
But I'm just saying,
it's a habit.
Well, it's a habit that they developed because it started out of disrespect. So if you want to have an honest conversation, and for example, if I said to you, Matthew, I want to have an honest, and you go, okay, only my mother calls me Matthew.
I did say that.
I'm just saying, if you want to say, if you want to have a decent conversation with me, call me Matt. But if I insisted on calling you Matthew, I'm obviously not willing to have a decent conversation.
Right, but if you insist on it, and I made it clear that that's something that bothers me. I don't think it's been made clear. I mean, I have heard some people get upset by the Democrat Party stuff, and I still see it used quite frequently. I don't think it's a conscious thing. I don't think most people think that they're being disrespectful by it. That's just become the way it is, and I don't think the message that we find that disrespectful is definitely they haven't made it clear that Matthew or Democrat Party pisses them off. So
they don't usually say it in front of another Democrat. They say it when they're being interviewed by themselves. when you watch the interview, quite often, especially if it's someone with a spine, they say it's Democratic.
Right. All right. Well, I would agree with you that I think he's probably leaning farther to the right than actually dead center, without a doubt. Did I say that right? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, because it looks on the screen, it looks left.
Yeah.
I have to reverse it. But yeah, so this would be right to the audience, but it's left to me.
No, I think it's still let me see. I'm watching you just like the audience would watch you, and
Right. So
so
that's
this is
to my
right.
right. That's to my right.
Which faces the audience's left? Yes, you're right. Yeah. So,
yeah.
you know what it is? They need to turn the screen around.
Yeah,
so
well, I
that
could
it's
do that.
facing.
There's
Yes.
a mechanism for that. Mirror
No,
my.
them. They need to turn the screen around so that it's like when somebody's standing beside you. You know. Yeah, I think they get it.
Yeah. Anyway, our next guest is here. Dick Wybrow is an Amazon best-selling author of humorous supernatural fiction. And I think with the supernatural we're going to focus on here is werewolves, but the supernatural could be a whole gamut of things from ghosts to UFOs and all that kind of stuff. After years in radio and on stage, he's a public speaker, and his first book is Wolf Were, the Wolf Were series, not Werewolf, Wolf Were, which is Kane is a bestseller on Amazon, and book two is killing it, and the third comes out on December 26th. That's enough of this intro that I'm sloppily reading. Let's just welcome him in. Dick Wybrow, welcome.
Hey, thanks. How you guys doing? You're catching me at about 4:20 in the morning here in New Zealand. So, and I've got a cat bugging the hell out of me. Get out of here.
Are you a New Zealander or you there just visiting? What are you doing in New Zealand?
No, man, I live here. I'm born in Canada. My father was a Kiwi, and so he moved us to the U.S. when I was 9. But I always wanted to come here, and since he's New Zealander, and so then I'm half New Zealander, it's actually kind of hard to get here in New Zealand away. They don't let a lot of people in because they know what they got, and so. But
there's also not a lot of land.
There's quite a bit actually. We only got 5 million
if they let everybody in, it's going to get like New York.
It'll fill up. It'll fill up, but
it'll take a while.
You can go for miles and miles or kilometers and so they use the metric here, but it doesn't have that same weight. Nobody says you say kilometers, but you could go miles and miles here and not bumping anybody. It's nice. But so, anyways, so I'm officially a citizen, and so they had to let me in. So it was me. And I got my Alabama wife I brought with me, and she tears it up out here, man. They don't know what to do with her. So yeah,
did she bring her slaves with her? I'm sorry. You say Alabama.
It's tough because you got to get that through customs, and there's all these forms. It's really difficult.
Interesting stuff. New Zealand. Now that's I don't think I've ever been to New Zealand. I was on that side of the world a long time ago when I traveled with the cult. I'm pretty certain I've never been there, but it's kind of a haze anyway because I was self-medicating to an extreme at that point.
If you're in New Zealand, there's a lot of self-medicating, man. There is a heroic drinking culture here.
Really?
Oh my God!
I was under the impression that it was extremely Christian.
No, not at all. No,
really?
no. It's very not Christian. Now, there's many folks in the Maori community, however you want to say it, that actually are in a lot of ways the most religious. The Pacifica people are actually quite religious, but all what they call pakia here. Which is a nice word for whiteys. For the most part, they're not. They're pretty. I think it just takes to be sort of committed to a particular doctrine. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a certain amount of commitment. And here in New Zealand, they're like, I just don't have the strength.
But they name a city Christchurch. You would think that that's probably where I got that perception from. If one of your biggest cities is Christchurch, you got to think.
Well, all the cities, a lot of the older cities like Christchurch and Auckland and all these places, Wellington, they're all named after old white British dudes. Some of them that never even came here. I mean, Auckland is named after a guy that never set foot in New Zealand. Yeah. So yeah.
You got a lot of werewolves down there?
We do not have too many werewolves. We, for the most part, we are werewolf free. You know what's funny actually about New Zealand is it's predator free. There's nothing here that will kill you other than the alcohol.
People.
There's a little bit of that for the most part. Everybody gets along, but there's no spiders. There's no snakes. There's no native mammals other than a bat, and the bat's cute. So it's the safest place in the world out here. It really is.
It sounds like paradise, kind of.
It is.
It's warm there, right? It's warm there all year round, or do you get winters?
It's not like Fiji sort of warm. It's sort of like this. it's a little bit like a lot of the people here. It's sort of like this indifferent warm. It's like here 75 degrees, and
I'll
it just
take it.
kind of hangs around that temperature for a fair amount of the year. But we've had rain. We've had rain since 2019, almost every day here in Auckland. It's been raining like crazy. I'm over it.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's really, maybe it's washing the planet clean. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
that's San Diego weather. It's 75 all year round. I think most people in America would pay dearly for
Dude,
that.
we've got San Diego house prices out here. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
We live in a place that the last place we lived in was Atlanta. And if this home were in Atlanta, it'd be like 285, something like that. Here, it's just got valued at $980,000.
Wow.
So the home prices here are nuts.
Yeah, San Diego is the most expensive city in the U.S.
I almost did radio in San Diego. And so I went there. It was like a rock station there. This had been back 15, 20 years ago or so. And then is it Coronado? Is that the name of the island out there?
Yeah.
So I was, what the hell? Let's take a look and see what they got to offer. And so they're like this townhouse that was built in the 50s, the 1850s. It was so damn old looking. The backyard was mud, just mud, all of it. And the place was over $1 million. It was like, this is nuts. Beautiful city, but you could never live there.
Right. Yeah.
Now, like for you're talking about the weather. For example, in Arizona, the heat is always oppressive, and people just say, "Well, it's a dry heat." So
Right.
in New Zealand, do they just say it's a dry rain? I mean, how do they just,
The weather is something that we can all complain about. So it's sort of a bonding experience. Oh, look, my house is flooded. Mine too. But it's for the most part, people just get by. That is the cool part here. Other than driving, all the Kiwis seem to just kind of chill, and they have the she'll be right attitude, which is really nice to be a part of, because we get pretty wound up in the U.S. and here not so much.
Yeah.
What's up with the driving?
I don't know what it is. See, I ride a motorcycle into work, and there are people, for the most part, most New Zealanders, especially the Pakeha, really do not express themselves. Their emotional range is from happy to angry to sad. And so it's just all sort of in an even keel. And I think when they get behind the wheel, all that repression comes out, and their desire to kill or something comes out, and it's madness on the roads out here, man. It's nuts.
It's like social media on the road. It's like mobile social media.
It's rolling the dice every time I get into work. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a challenge.
I was not aware of that. Now, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but you're probably not aware of this. Back in the day when I first started in radio, my big thing was paranormal stuff, supernatural stuff. Had guests on from all walks of life. One guy I interviewed several times, Stephen Kaplan, the head of the Vampire Research Institute in New York City, who believed vampires were real. Do you come and vampires and werewolves agree? Do you come from the belief that the things you write about and talk about are real? Do you have a belief system in them?
See, I mean, there's some amount of that. I'm 54. I have to look at the date. I'm 54 now. So, when you're younger, you are assured, man. When I was 22, 23, I knew it all. And then as you get older, you start to realize that you don't know anything. And I think that's wisdom. I think, ironically, the more you realize you don't know jack is the closer and closer you get to wisdom. So when it comes to things like supernatural, when it comes to things like werewolves or vampires or ghosts and any of this stuff, I can sort of say in an intellectual way, of course there aren't. But every now and then, like I've written another series before, and in that there's a detective who's dead. He's a ghost, and he's a detective. And so people have asked me before, well, do you believe in ghosts and all that sort of thing? And it's like, not on an intellectual level, but every now and then I get heebie-jeebies sometimes, man. You feel something. Or like when we've got 3 cats at home, every now and then when you sit with a cat at 2 a.m. watching television or something, and the cat just out of the blue, looks in the corner of the room. Huh? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what are you looking at,
yeah,
man?
yeah. I've been there.
Then you do one quick glance at you, like, you should probably go.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what the funny thing is? My cat will come get me to take me to the corner to show me the thing that's not there.
Right. Do you not see this? This
Yeah.
thing wants you dead. It's probably an Auckland driver who's a ghost.
That's interesting. When you mentioned Ghost Detective, my mind went right to Scooby Doo.
Right.
But yeah, so where would you consider yourself now? A open-minded?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the two parts of that are, one, just through life experience, when you start to realize that there's stuff around you that don't make sense to you whatsoever. And the other part is sort of a bit of a hope, I think. We sort of hope that there's something extra. I mean, like, if you died, how neat would it be that if you could kind of just wander around for a while, that you got like a hall pass for a year just to go check stuff out? But the other side of that means that if something like that were true, that means that right now I got 4 people staring at me.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so that gives me the heebie-jeebies. So I sort of, like, I think you're implying, I lean towards that there might be. I just don't know. But I hedge my bets. Yeah,
Wow.
I definitely.
Yeah,
I always keep it in the back of my mind.
With the ghost issue, my biggest fear is my private moments that I don't want to be seen, and that what you just expressed, that I might be being watched right now. Not right now, but when I'm doing something I don't want to be watched.
Right.
I used to tell my kid when she was younger, well, actually all the kids, but that I say, I don't have the answers. I don't know that there's a God or there isn't, or what happens after. I've never been there. I don't know. So just live your life and assume you're being watched all the time by someone. And whatever you're doing, if you don't want someone to see it, then don't do it.
Then I'm not going to take a dump. I'm not going to have sex.
If you don't want anybody to see you do it, don't do it.
Now the question is, GD, do you actually adhere to that philosophy? You tell your kids, act as if you're being watched. Do you yourself adhere to that as well?
Yes, my philosophy is behave if your actions determine universal law.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
He does his comedy act as if people are watching, and we know that nobody ever is.
Right.
So that's the time for me to do the things I don't want to be seen.
Right.
Well, with the camera technology around, you're probably right. Anywhere you go, there's cameras everywhere. There's cameras poking out of bank machines, off of light poles, everywhere. So we're pretty close to being watched all the time. So might as well get used to it.
Right. So now, with all the possibilities that supernatural or paranormal can offer, why werewolves?
That actually came from, so Cain is Cain. Cain came out of, actually, I wrote another book. I tried to be legitimate, right? So I was writing a thriller. So I'd written 8 books out of 9 to this other series I was doing. And then I was like, I'm going to write sort of a bit of a humorous book, sort of about the news industry, because I've been in news for about 20 years or so. So one of the adages in news, what determines a story, is dog bites man. That's not a story, because that happens every day. But man bites dog, that's a story, because it's unusual. And so I kept on hearing this again and again through some interviews I was doing with news people. And it's just one of those things, when you get that thing that kind of sticks into your head, that rolls around a little while and won't go away. So then this adage got stuck in my head, this idea of man bites dog. And so I don't know, through maybe the narcolepsy I've got, or maybe the drinking, I don't know what it was, but something started to turn. And in my head, I was like, that's something that I want to do. And so that sort of turned into this idea that, as it developed, that in my story, in the Cain series, basically this guy who's infected, and you can find out in the story a little bit more, I can tell you if you like, but the guy who's infected is in the British Columbian forest, and something happens and he bites a wolf, and that wolf the next day is transformed, turns into a 6'7" French Canadian. Naturally.
Was his name Mullen?
And so the fun part is, so then this guy, his sort of quest through this story is to find out about this guy who bit him, about what happened, what are the secrets behind this, because he wants to rejoin the wolf world. But so it's werewolf, wolf were. So wolf were is just reversal, because he's a wolf who turned into a man who can turn back into, with a full moon, a werewolf. But
Wow.
as I was creating the story, I was like, why is it? Because I'll be honest, I'm not a big monster book reader. I don't watch a lot of monster movies and all that. I watch them if they come on. But I was thinking, why is it just the full moon? Because then if you're writing a werewolf story, which basically this is, why do you have to wait until just the full moon comes out? Because that's
Thank you for that.
every 28, 29 days or so. That's kind of a long time between plot points.
Right.
And so I started to wonder, it's like, well, what if the moon were a half moon or a quarter moon or a sliver or something like this? What would that be? And so
Or
then
somebody
the
just
answer-
driving by showing their ass.
yeah.
Yeah, a quarter moon would be.
A
A quarter moon would be like I'm in the mood for some Alpo. I don't know why.
You know what?
Degrees.
You, my dog, me and you were right there. So that was the thought. So if it's a quarter moon, if it's a half moon or whatever, he'd be a lesser wolf, which would make him a dog. And so what happens is if he goes out into the moonlight, where it's just like a sliver of a moon, he turns into a little lap dog. If it's a half moon, he turns into a pug, which is one of the favorites of my readers. If it's a 3/4 moon, he turns into like a Rottweiler. And basically, the larger the moon phase, he turns into a bigger and bigger beast. And so that provides some of the comedy in the story, which is a lot of fun. He meets this woman. The one thing he can't do as a former wolf, because the motor skills aren't there, he can't work out how to drive. He speaks French and English, but he can't drive. So this part-time criminal named Imelda helps him out. She becomes his driver, but then gets invested in his sort of adventure and his quest to find out the answers to what happened to him. And together, these two go together to solve this mystery and fight off big shadow government organizations and super soldiers and monsters and fun. It's a fun story.
I'm gonna tell you now. I hate to admit this because I'm not like a fantasy kind of person. I like the way you think. I like the premise that you have here. And damn it, I want the movie because I'm too late to read. I'm too lazy to read. But and especially since you have like what? Okay, 2 questions.
Here we go.
First of all, who does your artwork? And this is the same person that's doing your artwork. I'm digging your artwork.
Yeah, the dude is really good. He just goes by, or she goes by. I don't even know if it's male or female. I've been working with them years. Warren Design, these folks out of Europe somewhere. I'll say they're great. They're great and really understand composition and really brought it out. Don't make it too complicated. Tell a story in just a couple of words. But no, they've done beautiful work for me.
Yes, I really like the artwork. I like the way you think. I love the concept and like your books, because I admit, I'm not going to lie to you, because we've been friends for so long. I think it would cheapen our relationship.
No. I appreciate the honesty.
I didn't have a chance to do a deep dive into you because I was once we did realize, I was like, I started with the first rabbit hole. I couldn't get out in time. So right. I don't know if your books are audio books available.
Now you mentioned it. So within a couple of weeks of this book coming out, the folks, if you're an audiobook viewer, Podium Audio viewer, sorry. Hey, it's 4:00 in the morning and I've got narcolepsy. If you're an audiobook listener, it's 4:37 a.m. in Auckland. But Podium Audio has picked up the rights to the book. So yeah, so book 1's going to come out in mid-January, book 2 in February, and the third one probably the month after that. So yeah.
I just have to say to the people in California that give me a hard time about coming on early. 4:37, people, come on. 7 o'clock in the morning is no big deal. This guy is on 4:30 in the morning. Come on.
Now with the narcolepsy, is there a precursor is there like a warning sign that you know, or like because you're saying I am a narcoleptic as though there is like no cure. So is there like a treatment so that that prevents you, something that prevents you from going narcoleptic in any given moment?
No, I'm always tired. So narcolepsy is different for everybody. Like some folks have the cataplexy to where if there's a loud noise, that they'll actually go out. They'll pass out from it, which you got to wonder in traffic. If someone leans on a horn to just, delicious.
Wow, yeah.
But but I'm always tired. I'm tired constantly. And so there are drugs you can take for the most part, but some of them, like I'd taken, they gave me Adderall back when I was in Atlanta, and that just made me kind of angry and kind of amped. I was crushing it up and snorting it, but I mean, that might have been part of the problem. So I don't do that stuff anymore. But so I take something called modafinil. But now basically, I'm always tired. I'm constantly like always exhausted. And sort of the irony of that is because you're in that sort of state, it's actually kind of difficult to sleep. Not just when you sleep, that it's not what they call recuperative sleep, but I don't sleep well. I haven't slept a full 8 hours in 20 years.
I'm going to self-diagnose myself as a narcoleptic then, because you just described my life pretty well. I mean, I'm always exhausted and I can't sleep.
Yeah.
So.
Well, do you know what though? Here's the thing. So when I finally got identified as a narcoleptic, when that strange conversation happened, because I wasn't trying to find that out, I was initially, it was like, oh, that sucks. But then in a real sort of mindfulness sort of way, back before that was sort of a term, I actually turned that around and I see it as, I swear to you, I see it as a superpower. Because do you know when you're like lying down and going to sleep and you're those ideas and thoughts coming into your head, creative thoughts and ideas, and you're like, that is so good. I am going to, no, I don't have to write that down. There's no way I'm gonna forget that. Then you wake up the next morning, you don't remember it whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
So that state that you're in when you fall asleep, that weird sort of back and forth between dream and wake, I'm there 80% of my day.
Yeah, me too.
I am, but that gives me creativity, I think, because normally when you're awake, your brain says, no, don't think about that. That's stupid. That's dumb. And my brain doesn't have that governor. It goes, yeah, let's go down that path. Let's see where that goes.
Yeah.
That's a powerful reframe, I think.
Yeah. Well, you got to, because otherwise you get angry about it, and you get into a car, you drive through Auckland traffic.
I played in a band with a kid. I call him a kid, even though I was pretty much a kid at the time. I was probably in my early 20s. He was like 17, 18, and he was a narcoleptic who would fall asleep in the middle of his, like that, like just talking, and like just fall asleep in the middle of a word sometimes. It was really
there's some that have that. I've fallen asleep. I think a lot of people have, though. I've fallen asleep a dozen times in traffic. You get to a light and it's just it's a little bit too long. But for my part, I can only speak from my experience that I've learned that if I'm in a sitting up position, something in my brain says, don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep.
I've been to Chevy Chase from, I think it was whatever the first vacation movie where he's got his head back and he's snoring and he's driving a station wagon at like 80 miles an hour. I've been that person. So
yeah. Well, I'm on a motorcycle now, so that'll keep you alert.
Yeah.
Fear of death is a great is better than caffeine, so that's good.
Yeah.
So is that why you got a motorcycle? Because you needed that, or you just like
no? It's funny. I am the most non-biker motorcycle you ever meet. I've been riding for 30 years, and it's 100% out of convenience, because the traffic here, like we're talking about, is dreadful. So when I'm riding into the gig I got producing television, if I didn't take the motorcycle, I would get there tomorrow. And with a motorcycle, I can go between cars, and then when I get there, parking in Auckland is horrible. There's nowhere to park. It's like New York. There's nowhere to park. And so with a motorcycle, you can park anywhere. And they're really sort of, the one cool thing about New Zealand is they got rules, but those are just like, rules.
Guidelines. We call them guidelines.
So you can go and park on a sidewalk and they're like, that's probably fine.
Yeah. When I was doing I was heavily into the paranormal stuff. My life attracted a lot of fucking crazy and scary people, which is part of the reason I stepped away from it. Does writing about werewolves do that in your life? Are you attracting crazy people?
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's the opposite. I think that people that read Kane, the series, I think that they're probably, because it's not necessarily attracting a lot of uber supernatural fans necessarily. It's people that like thrillers and humor and fun and supernatural. And so in their lives, I'm the lunatic.
Right.
In their lives, the person that they know that's off kilter is me. So I don't get a lot of like the crazy people coming my way in their circles, I'm probably the weirdest one of the people that they happen to know. But on occasion, I do get somebody, who will say like, "Hey, will you speak at this event?" or "Will you, come here? I'm in New Zealand, I can't go anywhere." But I've had a half dozen folks reach out to me and ask me to speak at a particular event here or there, or just, on a panel, or even just to get into a podcast discussion about this stuff, because there's some folks that are really, really invested in it. And, the performance, if you're into it, that's fine. As long as you're not going out doing ritualistic killing, you're probably fine.
Al Balick, who was famous for talking about the Philadelphia experiment and claimed to be on the boat, was on my show many times. And one time he brought a guy named Duncan Cameron. And Duncan Cameron was introduced to me as a soul split from Al Balick. They were the same soul that split in half. Only Duncan's soul went, and his body went to Mars, where he met Jesus and Elvis on Mars.
Of course. Well,
and
we're wondering where they got
me,
to.
Yeah, looking me dead in the eye with all seriousness and saying this kind of stuff. Those are the kind of people I attracted. And, and after a while, it got to be, this is just it's too much for me. I got to get away from it. And I closed my mind to it completely for a long time.
It'll turn your own head.
Speaking of getting
It'll turn
away
your
from
own. You'll start to go there.
You want me to get off Govs? Is that what you want me to do?
Well, it's that time. I was just a gentle reminder.
Thank you. That was not so gentle, but it was kind of like
I was trying not to interrupt.
Bat over the head. A little gentle bat over the head. I guess it's time. I would like to keep Govs around, make them suffer for a few more minutes, but we'll let them go for now. Do we know who's at Govs this weekend? Let's mention them really quick.
Some people. There's some people there.
No.
Dick Wybrow. Dick Wybrow will be performing comedy at Govs this week.
I'm up for it. I haven't done stand-up for about last time I did stand-up, I did it with Dan Whitney, Larry the Cable Guy, at a Chinese food restaurant annex in Melbourne, Florida. And it was one of the best times I've ever had. It was great. It was
fantastic. Was that? What year was it? About when? And you also do elephant impersonations. You're talented. You're fucking talented.
That's me thinking. That's how I think. I do animal sounds. 2001, 2002 or so. It was phenomenal. We had such a great time.
Tonight at Govs, just before we say goodbye to them, stand-up showcase Long Island's finest in the Giggle Room. It doesn't say who's in the main room. I guess nobody's in the main room tonight. Tomorrow night, Nikki Smiriglio. I don't know him.
That's a hard sell, brother. That's a hard sell.
It's a special event. Listen, he looks like a soap star. He's one of these handsome young guys. I don't like handsome comics. I like my comics ugly.
That's probably why they became comics.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's it, Govs. We're saying goodbye to you. Have a great weekend. Hope you